Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari
Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari
Radha Madhava Jai Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajagacharya A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajagacharya Ashtapad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopi Shyama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Navadvip Dham Ki Jai Gangamai Ki Jai Yamunamai Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Tulasi Devi Ki Jai Samaveta Bhaktavrinda Ki Jai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled. Hare Krishna. All glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. All glories to Divine Grace. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Vedanta. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharne Nirvishya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 2, Verse number 29, Translation and Commentary by His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta. Vibharshi Rupani Avabodha Atma Shemaya Lokasya Chara Acharasya Sattva Upapannani Sukha Avahani Satam Abadhrani Uhuhu Kalanam Vibharshi Rupanya Babhoda Atma Shemaya Lokasya Chara Charasya Tattvo Papannani Sukhavahani Satam Abhadrani Muhu Kalanam Vibharshi Rupanyavabodha Atma Shemaya Lokasya Chara Charasya Sattvopappannani Sukhavahani Tatama Bhadrani Muhu Kalanam Vibharshi Rupanyavabodha Atma Premaya Lokasya Chara Charasya Sattvopappannani Sukhavahani Tatama Bhadrani Muhu Kalanam Vibharshi Rupanyavabodha Atma Premaya Lokasya Chara Charasya Sattvopappannani Sukhavahani Tatama Bhadrani Muhu Kalanam Vibharshi Rupanyavabodha Atma Shemaya Lokasya Chara Charasya Sattvopappannani Sukhavahani Tatama Bhadrani Muhu Kalanam Vibharshi Rupanyavabodha Atma Premaya Lokasya Chara Charasya Sattvopappannani Sukhavahani Sabhamavatrani Muhu Kalanam Vibharshi Rupanyavabodha Atma Premaya Lokasya Chara Charasya Sattvopappannani Sukhavahani Tatama Bhadrani Muhu Kalanam Vivi Vibharshi Rupanyavabodha Atma Shemaya Lokasya Sukhavahani Sattvopappannani Sukhavahani Tatama Bhadrani Muhu Kalanam Vibharshi, you accept Rupani, varieties of forms such as Matsya, Kurma, Varaha, Rama and Nrsimha. Avabodha Atma, in spite of having different incarnations, you remain the Supreme full of knowledge. Kshemaya, for the benefit of everyone and especially the devotees. Lokasya, of all living entities. Chara, acharasya, moving and non-moving. Sattva, upapannani. All such incarnations are transcendental. Shuddha sattva, sukha, avahani, full of transcendental bliss. Satam, of the devotees. Abhadrani, all inauspiciousness or annihilation. Hu, again and again. Halanam, of the non-devotees. O Lord, you are always in full knowledge and to bring all good fortune to all living entities. You appear in different incarnations, all of them transcendental to the material creation. When you appear in these incarnations, you are pleasing to the pious and religious devotees. But for non-devotees, you are the annihilator. Purport. This verse explains why the Supreme Personality of Godhead appears as an incarnation again and again. The incarnations of the Supreme Personality had all function, but their main purpose is paritranaya sadhunang vinashaya chadushtam, to protect the devotees and annihilate the miscreants. Yet, even though the dushkritis or miscreants are annihilated, this is ultimately them. Nama Shreshtham Namaki Shakti Radha Kuntam Apto Yasya Prati Vandeham Sri Guru Shri Sri Gurun Vaishnavans Gana Adhuna Radha Lalita Sri Vishnu Nayashe Hare Krishna 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 Hare Rama Hare Rama Rama Rama. Now in the 10th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam is considered the smiling face of the Lord, according to a description in the Padma Purana, which equates different cantos of the Bhagavatam with different features of the transcendental body of Krishna, beginning from the feet. In the 10th canto is very famous for Krishna's Vrindavan pastimes, especially his pastimes with the gopis, especially Ras Leela. It's also famous for Krishna stealing butter, also famous for Krishna stealing the garments of the unmarried gopis. There's a lot of philosophical instruction in here also, from this. In the 10th canto, we may think, now this verse spoken by the demigods, praying to Krishna within the womb of Devaki, and they are speaking Bhagavat Tattva Vijnanam, scientific knowledge of the personality. You may think, well, that's just for the demigods, or just before Krishna appears. Then after that, it's all bliss, no philosophy, as if there's a difference. But we find even throughout the 10th canto, in fact, the longest and most complex philosophical discussion we find right there in the 10th canto of Bhagavatam. What am I talking about? Anyone? Don't shout at me. Prayers of the personified Vedas. It's pretty tough stuff. Practically, to understand that in context, you have to know all the different darshans. And we find also that although Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is very famous for his elaborations on the Gopi Leela, but he also gets into the prayers of the personified Vedas and unpacks it philosophically. Any one verse there is whole PhD thesis. You could unpack it hugely. So here also we find the demigods speaking to Krishna. Why are they telling him all these things? They say, Avabodha Atma. You know, Bodha, you know this. Abodha. Bodha gives the idea of intelligence, knowledge. So Avabodha Atma means one who is full in knowledge in himself. In spite of having different incarnations, you remain the supreme full of knowledge. Well, if he's full of knowledge, why do they have to tell him he's full of knowledge? He already knows it, right? It's like one time one devotee said to Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada, I've surrendered my life fully to you. And Prabhupada said, I already know that. Why do you need to tell you? Sometimes you become, someone tells you something as if they're informing you something which you know very well. I remember once I was taking sadhana with Dr. Thakur Maharaj in Chennai, the old Tinaga Center, and serving prasadam and said, oh, this is idlis and sambar. He said, yeah, I know. I've been coming to South India for more than 20 years. I know what idlis and sambar. So like that. It just, oh well, that popped out of my subconscious. So why are they telling him? Well, it might be. You might think it might be boring being God. The Christian concept, at least, if they have any concept, what I heard, he's sitting on a cloud somewhere up there. They're all angels strumming harps and singing his praises. And then until the day of judgment, he's throwing people into hell. And then after that, there's nothing really to look down at except everyone in hell. But it sounds kind of boring, sitting on a cloud, just sitting there all the time, strumming some harp. You become an angel, and that's what you do. And you praise him, and he yawns through his big white beard. But Krishna Leela is a lot more interesting, full of rasa. Not only one rasa. Well, there are two rasas, right, in the Christian concept. Not that they have any idea of rasa. One is this awe and reverence, and the other is what do you call that? Dvesha rasa, the pleasure of looking at people suffering in hell. That'd be something like Bibhatsa rasa. But Krishna Leela is full of variety, and he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Why are the demigods saying this? They're saying it more for their own benefit. It's not that he's benefited. He's not benefited by us praising him, but he is pleased. He is pleased when he is praised, no doubt. Part of being God, you're praised. So he likes that. Although, as we find that's brought out in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishna actually prefers the rebukes of the gopis more than phrases like this. Not that he doesn't like it. He is, after all, Savapriya. Where is he? He's right here. His name is Stavar. It means he likes to be praised with Vedic verses. It's not that he doesn't like that. But he likes more the rebukes of the gopis. But if everyone was rebuking him all the time, then it wouldn't be fun. You have to have a variety. It's not all the same. The demigods are praising him. They need to know this because they are very much prone to forget it. As we find repeatedly in the Bhagavatam, famously in the 10th canto, we find Brahma, he's also supposed to be Avabodha Atma. You don't become Brahma if you're some idiot. You have to be very pious and very intelligent and very spiritually advanced also. He's the topmost Brahmana. But even he became bewildered by Krishna's Maya. And he had some doubt. Maybe Krishna is an ordinary person. It didn't take him long to think, well, maybe I made a mistake. A moment later, which was a year on earthly calculation. And then Indra tried to kill everyone in Vrindavan. That's pretty serious, isn't it? It's pretty demoniac, actually. And then after getting chastised by Krishna, again he wanted to fight with him. So, Muhyanti yat suryaha, we find in the beginning of Bhagavatam, that he bewilders even the great demigods. So sometimes when they need some help, they get their consciousness sorted out. They know, actually, they couldn't make prayers like this unless they knew who is Krishna. At least theoretically they know. But they're not able to fully apply it in their life because they are retaining material desires. They're attached to their position as demigods. What they say is completely correct, of course. This verse is it's Bhagavad Gita verses, Ajopi Sanavyayatma Bhutana Mishwaropi Samadhishtaya Sambhavamaya Amaya. And then Yada Yada Hi Dharmasya Glani Bhavati Bharata Abhutanam Adharmasya Tadatmanam Sadam Jameham Paritranaya Sadhunam Vinashaya Tadushtam Dharma Sansthapanarthaya Sambhavami Yoga Yoga. So this verse which we're reading today summarizes those three verses. He's unborn, but he appears Avyaya Atma. He doesn't diminish. Here the demigods say that he accepts various forms, but it's not that he becomes reduced by doing so. He's in full knowledge. It's not that if one part comes out from him, and therefore that part is less than the whole, or the whole has become lesser because of the expanded form. And he appears for the benefit of all living beings. It brings out a point which is not there in those three verses from Gita, that he benefits everyone. Here he says, Satam Abhadrani, he delivers the devotees from all inauspiciousness. And what are we talking about? Sukhavahani Satam. He gives bliss to the devotees, and abhadrani kalanam. Srila Prabhupada sometimes translates this, but kala here he translates it as non-devotee. Sometimes translates it as rascal. That verse is there. What is that? You can give antro shodhi vashasarpa hala pena nivaryate. Both the snake and the kala, the rascal, are very envious. But the snake you can subdue by mantras and medicine. But the kala, the rascal person, is Chanakya, that you can't, nothing you can do about him. So Krishna comes to give benefit to the whole universe. Chara acharasya, all living beings, moving and non-moving. And even the non-devotees who he destroys, he does good to them. That point is brought out here in this verse, especially how Srila Prabhupada unpacks it, because it kshemaya lokasya characharasya. He acts for the benefit of all the worlds, all living beings in the world, both moving and non-moving, and he gives happiness to the devotees and punishes the rascal. So it seems that it's a qualified statement. He comes to do good. It could be taken like that. He comes to do good for the whole world, but for the rascals, he doesn't do good for them. He just punishes them. But of course, his punishment is his mercy also. You get mercy according to the way you approach him. Yayatamang prapadyante tangs tataiva bhajami aham. Srila Prabhupada gave that example. Just like a judge in the court is neutral. The one person he awards, okay, you take a payment of $100,000. Someone else, you go to prison for 30 years. It's not that he's just pulling some pieces of paper out of a hat. And for you, $100,000. And for you, 30 years in prison. But he sees, judges according to the law, and then makes his decision according to the law. And there's the spirit of the law as well as the letter of the law. Both things are to be considered. Generally, first-time offenders, they may be excused or given a light sentence or a suspended sentence. Talking about how you are the first time someone makes a mistake, then generally, Draupadi was saying to Yudhishthira, generally, first time you forgive, but if they do it again, then you know they're not just doing it out of mistake. They should have corrected themselves. Srila Prabhupada himself said that when he was running his pharmaceutical business, he had a license for making alcohol. And then he was called to court because it was discovered that there was extra alcohol being produced and sold illegally, just making pure ethanol spirit. Pure means mixed with water. You know about all this. I'm from that background, fortunately. And there 70 proof, 90 proof, 90 proof means 175 is pointless, but you can't have it without mixed. You can't have alcohol unless it's mixed in water anyway. No such thing. So Mr. Day went to court and he said that to Your Honor, Prabhupada said this. I know it's a fault. I'm responsible as the proprietor of the company, but my manager did that without my knowledge. and I'll be more careful in future. The judge let him off. But if he was called again, of course, just theoretically here, someone may be excused. All right, there's a respectable gentleman speaks in English, which was quite fair in those. And so they let him. But if he came again, then it's you can't have lenience now. Even if you didn't know and it was your manager, you already warned, and so you should have been responsible to see. So there is justice, and there is also mercy. Where is the balance between them? It's hard to say. The proper king, he should be ready to punish his own son for any infraction of the law. And even someone who is inimical to him, he won't punish him on spurious grounds. He has to actually break the law before he punishes him. These are rules of dharma. And yesterday we were celebrating Ramanavami, and the very exemplar of that is Lord Sri Rama. And the exemplar of doing what he likes is Krishna, who's about to come now. He does what he likes, but he does paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya dushkritam, but he's not always checking the rule book as he does it. He does the same thing which the other avatars do, but he has his own style. I did it my way. He's not constrained by rules. And therefore he's sometimes misunderstood. And that's a reason why the demigods have to say this, and why Vyasa, there must have been so many things going on in Krishna Lila. We have the 10th canto, it's quite big, but it's only a summary. There's so many things. And we find other things are described in other Puranas, but there's so much. We find in Chaitanya Charitamrita that Krishnadas Kaviraj says that I'm only writing a summary, otherwise the book would become too big. That means there must have been many other pastimes which he heard from Raghunath Das Goswami. Must have heard. He heard so much from Raghunath Das Goswami. And there are other books, of course, there's Chaitanya Bhagavat, and we have others, Chaitanya Chandrodaya, that's a Nartaka. There's a spurious book, Govinda Das's Karja. It's obviously bogus because it uses modern Bengali. Just like the word in Tamil for window is janal, right? Which language does that come from? Is it Sanskrit or is it's Portuguese? So the Bengali word is janala. And that book comes up in, supposed to be Govinda Das, the servant of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, his notes. But there wasn't any Portuguese at the time. So it's obvious, and the book was never there until the 19th century. I'm just thinking of it because Bhanu Swami translated it. What did he translate that for? It's obviously a bogus book. It's complete. Anyway, there are, but the point is that there's so much going on in any one lila at any time. We find even devotees who just had a few seconds of close association with Srila Prabhupada. It can be just the way he looked at them. That's enough to change their whole life. Indrajumna Swami told one story like that. It was in Australia somewhere, I think it was. Someone heard, he was walking outside, you remember that one? He was walking outside some hall, and he heard there's something going on inside. Out of curiosity, when he heard Prabhupada say one line, and that was the last line in the talk, and then the talk was finished, and Prabhupada went off the stage, and that changed his whole life. And there's stories like that also, that there was one devotee, he was non-devotee, he's walking along on the street, and you won't understand this because this happens in the Western countries. People wear shoes, and then the ground is wet, and a piece of paper is, this happens a lot in England because it rains a lot there, and a little bit of mud on the paper makes, so it sticks to your shoe. It's on the pavement and it sticks to your shoe. Then you walk along, you see there's a piece of paper, you take it off. And so he looked at it, it's a little piece of something, a little paragraph or something. What's that? It says back to Godhead. It's the corner of a back to. What is that? This is something I never imagined. What is this? I didn't know. I had no idea what back to God is. And after some time, also, shoved a magazine in his stomach. And, it was. What was that? Back to Godhead? Give me one of them. It took the magazine and became a devotee. So there's so many things are going on in Krishna Lila all the time. Every single devotee in Vrindavan, which includes even the grains of dust, they can all tell so much. They have so much to say. Krishna is personally interacting with every living being at the same time. He's personally interacting with every living being. He's playing his flute, and then he's looking here, and his eyes are moving here and there, and his hair is moving, and everyone's looking at him and seeing him and interacting personally. Again, we hear in the Rasa Leela dance, Krishna expands himself into the same number as the gopis, but it's the same. When he sits down at midday to take lunch, he expands himself into so many forms that all the cowherd boys think that Krishna is sitting just in front of me, and he knows all the cows and the calves' names, and they all have a very intimate, personal relationship with him. And all of them have so much to say about Krishna. And we get a little summary here in the Bhagavatam. So the demigods are talking at their level, which we also need to understand at our level. We really say, oh, demigods, demigods. They're nowhere near the gopis, but they're closer than we are. They're demigods, they're pious people who got up there. And what they say here, we need to understand as we go into Krishna Lila and we hear all these things. And again throughout the 10th canto, we'll get Krura says his prayers, and so many. Muchukunda says his prayers. Bhumi Devi says, and the prayer. Brahma, Indra. I'm saying the prayers of the personified Vedas, but there's so many who make their prayers in between, and all the prayers are like this. They're full of philosophical content. Generally, those who are going to pray to Krishna, they have an attitude of reverence toward him. So we also need to have that, and that's interspersed with all the pastimes. Vyasadeva has given it like this, so that we don't start to think like Brahma did. It's just some boy. They're making a big fuss about him, but after all, he's just some boy. He's a nice-looking boy, young boy, just like we saw so many nice-looking young boys yesterday, but dressed up as Rama, Lakshman, but we don't think because they're dressed up like that they actually are Rama and Lakshman. We know who they actually are. I was asking, who's that? Who's that? Who's that? And he told me just before Kumbhakarna came on, you'll never guess who is Kumbhakarna. Who's going to act Kumbhakarna? Because it wasn't a cowherd. I immediately guessed. I got it. Who else? So we don't miss it. We know who they actually are. If they get carried away and then we find Padmanabh comes strutting in, well, actually, I'm actually Rama here, see. So, no, you're not. You did okay. You acted quite well. All right, quite good, but you're not Rama. Just let's be realistic here. So we need to understand who Krishna is as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Srila Prabhupada, he titled his 10th canto edition of Bhagavatam, the summary study. He said he's going to make a summary study, but then he ended up doing the whole 10th canto. Supposed to be, seems that he had the idea just to do a summary. There's a summary study, but he didn't summarize it. He gave it all with explanation also. But he gives the title, he doesn't say Krishna who danced with the gopis. He didn't make that the title. Or Krishna Prem Purushottam or Lila Purushottam. That would have been quite fitting also. Krishna, the supreme lover or the supreme actor of pastimes or however you. The supreme personality of God, Godhead. The word is there. The word is there. Actually, I've been going through the 10th canto recently, over the last few weeks. It takes some time to go through it. And one thing I'm struck by is, again and again and again, the word Achyuta comes. The name. I didn't do a search yet, but it seems that that name comes up more than any other name in the 10th canto. And Sanatana Goswami, I'm reading his commentary, that he gives the meaning of it, and the implication of it, that you never fail in your promise, or that you will Achyuta, you will definitely conquer the 7 bulls because you're Achyuta, and like this. So he gives in context what it means. Why every word? Why this? And again, of course, Sukadeva addresses Parikshit as Raja, sometimes Kurunanda, and he says why he calls him Raja in this context. That you're a king, you know these things very well. Krishna married such and such a queen. Yatha vidhi, according to the proper rules. You're a king, you understand these things very well. Or Raja, he's calling, you see, you are the descendant of the Pandavas. So, calling his attention to that. Not like that. There's so much in Bhagavatam. Even I'm saying this verse, it summarizes many of the points in those 3 verses in Gita. But then if you get more deeply, and every verse, you could spend a lifetime just unpacking it, understanding it. And many times I say, the teachings in Bhagavatam, they exactly parallel teachings in the Upanishads. You'll find that again and again. That statement that Yajnavalkya to Gargi, that why we love our body, our friends, our family, all this. Why? Because of the Atma, because we love Atma. It's all for the self. And that can be understood at the level of the self as misunderstood in material identity, or it can be understood generally the impersonalist, generally like the Upanishad, in terms of some conception of universal Atma. But that is explained by Sukadeva at the end of the passage where it's described, well, it's after Krishna has shown to Brahma, the calves and the cowherd boys are all Vishnuful. And then a year later, that pastime comes to an end. And then and Parikshit asks, well, how can the mothers, both the cows and the older gopis in Vrindavan, how can they love, because it was Krishna and not their own son or calf, how can they love someone more than their own calf or son? And the same answer, that love is actually for the real love is centered on the Atma, and Krishna is the supreme Atma. So that puts it in the complete personal context, but it's the same thing. And we'll get again and again. And again, we may not be aware of it, And that especially comes up in the prayers of the personified Vedas, but throughout the Bhagavatam, we find there's answering Sankhya philosophy, especially Sankhya and Nyaya, and all these different philosophies are refuted. You really need the teachings of the Acharyas. We don't understand that maybe so much because we get Prabhupada's commentary, which we only know the Bhagavatam through Prabhupada's commentary. Good for us. Well, we can read, as Prabhupada also recommends, the other Acharyas' commentary. But the Mayavadi is also such. And there are many, many statements in the Bhagavatam which you could read it in an impersonal way. You find the words Kaivalya many times, and Param Jnana, and if you have an impersonal conception and you impose that on the Bhagavatam, you can find so many things. Even Parikshit, when he's about to pass away, and then it says, the way if you read it according to Advaitavad, it sounds like he just merged into the impersonal oneness. So there are many things. It's huge. This Bhagavatam is huge. Why it's universally accepted, just like Chaitanya Charitamrita is universally accepted by scholars, both devotional and non-devotional, as the last word. That was the title of a book by a non-devotional scholar, Tony Stewart. The Chaitanya Charitamrita is after so many biographies had written of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, this is the one which is definitive for the Gauriya Sampradaya. So in the same way, we'll find both non-devotee scholars, not that non-devotee scholars touch the Bhagavatam that much, but everyone agrees the Bhagavatam is it's the super book of all the, especially among the Puranas, in the content, the content both philosophically, linguistically, it's in a class of its own, the Bhagavatam. But nevertheless, it is meant not only for great scholars and great devotees, but for fools and rascals like us. I can say that on the basis of the Bhagavatam, not insulting you. Sri Shudra Dvija Bandhunam Vaina Veda Gocharaha. In the Kali Yuga, sorry to all of you who are born in Brahmin families. There are a few here, but you don't count as real Brahmins according to the Vedic standard. However much coffee you ever drunk in your life. But as Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur points out, who knows who's a Brahmin? Who's following all the rules? Garbhadhan, Sanskar, and all these things. And the Sanskar they're most interested in is the Upanayanam Sanskar, which must be there before, supposed to be when you're a boy, but nowadays they usually do it the day before marriage. And then after that, you're supposed to actually go and study at the Gurukul. Study at least one Veda. That's the first thing you're taught. They're taught it and they don't know what it means, but they just learn it by rote. That's the first thing they have to do. So in Kali Yuga, Prayanalpayusha Sabhya Kalavasmin Yuge Janaha Manda Sumanda Mateo Manda Bhagya Hi Upaduta. Almost everyone has got a short life, is stupid, Manda Sumanda, very stupid, Sumanda Mati, wicked, and always full of anxiety. So that refers to almost everyone. And what's the point I'm making here? Not qualified for the Vedas. And that's why the Bhagavatam was composed. Mahabharata was composed, and to give the full spiritual message, which is hinted at throughout the Mahabharata, pointed at in Bhagavad Gita. Then we have Srimad Bhagavatam, which is for everyone. Anartho pashamang sakshad bhakti yoga madhoksha jay loka sajanato vidvang chakre sattvatasam. People don't know that by bhakti yoga to the transcendent Lord can immediately get rid of all problems, free from all problems, all anarthas, all bad tendencies. People don't know. Therefore, Vyasadeva, who knows, he compiled the Sarvata Samhita, Srimad Bhagavatam. And who is that for? Kirata Hunanda Pulinda Protasa. What's the next line? Abhira Shamba Yavana Kasadaya Ye Necha Papa Yadapa Shaya Shaya Shudhyanti Tasmai Prabha Vishnave Namah. So everyone, it's open for the Chinese, Kirata, the Germans, the Huns, they're the Huns, even for the Andhras, uncivilized Andhras. How did that come about? They seem to be the most pious people in many ways in India at the present time. Maybe at that time they were a bunch of uncivilized people. Kirata Hunandra, Pulinda, Aborigines, nowadays you can't say that, Adivasi, scheduled tribes, something like that. Well, you're not supposed to say things like that nowadays, but they're unintelligent, uncivilized, and ugly. That's their karma. They're not expected to come to a very high standard. So all these Purkash, what's that? Greeks or Turks or Abhira, that means the cowherd, Lokas, Abhira, Shumba, Yavana, Greeks. Oh, Kasa is the Chinese. But all of them can be purified by the pure devotee. And then how powerful is he if even by his devotees they can purify everyone. They can all become devotees. That verse was there in Bhagavatam, and Srila Prabhupada showed it's not just theoretical. But still, there's a difference between India and the West. The dead elephant is still worth a lakh of rupees. In those days when the lakh of rupees meant something substantial, pocket change. People, I can imagine some people, they go out for a party in Bombay or something, Delhi, and they can splurge a lakh of rupees just like that. Wouldn't be able to do it. You can have as much tamasha as you like, but you couldn't spend a lakh of rupees in one night. So like that, even now, India is so much more pious than the West. I was saying there's a lot of difference between preaching in India and the West. The kind of talk I gave last night, you don't preach to people like that in the West. They're so far away. Every little thing you have to tell them. In the Western countries, every little thing you just have to. Of course, in India there are so many misconceptions also, but people can take to this culture more easily. And still there are people who want to follow this. Before we started our farms, we were told no one will come to your farms. No one will come. So some of our devotees thought, well, we'll go, and if anyone else comes, good for them, but we'll go. And then others want to come. People are sending their kids from different parts of the country to study in this Gurukul because they want their children to be devotees. Even now, there's great hope. And distributing this Bhagavatam is great program. There are so many good programs. The success of this temple, when it opens, it won't be Well, there's quality and quantity. We want many, many people to come, but we want to see how people are taking up seriously Krishna consciousness. It's not meant to be some kind of spiritual Disneyland that people just come, ooh, take a photo and go away. But they're supposed to take a Bhagavatam and go away. That's the real success. When you've been through everything, okay, here's your. I told in Tirupati, I told the devotees there, you should be distributing so many sets of Bhagavatam here. People are in a pious mood, they're coming. Throughout the day, make presentations, and people can just swipe, get a Bhagavatam, and then you ship it to them. Every day they should be distributing 100 Bhagavatam. And this, we're seeing, it makes devotees, right? There's that Jagan Mohan has told his sisters, he sold them sets, and one of them's reading it, became a devotee, told their father to give the inheritance to the son. Anyway, he's not going to marry, so you might as well give the money to Krishna. So it's having a profound effect. People are reading. You might think, how are they going to read this? So different and so difficult to read, but people are reading it, and it's changing their life. They're becoming devotees. Srila Prabhupada always said that the best way to preach is distributing his books. So powerful, this message of Bhagavatam. This is Krishna. So much work to build a temple, and beautiful Krishna is waiting with Radharani. Come on, finish the temple. We're fed up of sitting here. We want to be in our temple. Come on, finish it. But here he is in the Bhagavatam. Here he is, already there. We're ready to go in every home and change people's lives in a way they cannot imagine. Some of us had this experience. In the Western countries, most of the devotees, especially previously, I don't know, maybe they come nowadays through yoga programs or something, come in with all these weird ideas being brought in by yoga, but most of the devotees, they used to come in through reading Prabhupada's books. Right? We always used to ask in the way, how did you join? And by reading, what was the first thing? Read a book. Yeah, so you don't know when you get that book, you're going to start to read a book. You read so many books, okay, I'll read this book. You don't know how it's going to change your life. Because it's Krishna. And just the desire to read that in itself is purifying. Punya Shravana Kirtana Vidyantasto Hiya Bhadrani Vidhunoti Suhrit Satam. Krishna immediately begins the purifying process. Just when we start to read these books, you have no idea, no devotion, but there's something there. It's there in everyone. Avabodha Atma means Krishna doesn't forget who he is. We've forgotten who we are. It's there in everyone's heart. And many people, they're just waiting for that. Srila Prabhupada said that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said his name would be preached all over the world. That means there are many people all around the world just waiting for that Krishna consciousness to come to them. And this is the best way to reach them, by giving these books. When people they can understand this is something serious. And they can understand the person who's giving them the set of books. He's serious. He's not doing it for the money or whatever. You want to get money, you send, I don't know, some plastic dolls, or, I don't know, there's so many things. But selling books of a subject which it's intellectually difficult to understand, it's demanding in so many ways to read it, to understand it, to follow it. People can understand that person who is selling this, he has no personal motivation, but he has a strong motivation. Because they may not go through all this thought process, but it's going on in the back of the mind that this person has got something from this And he's not doing for anything personal, means but he knows that this is going to benefit me, doing it for my benefit. And then you become inspired to read it. And then life is, we should push on this book distribution. Sets, distribute sets. You have to have the faith to do it. When you really believe that this Bhagavatam is Krishna, and everyone needs Krishna, then you'll be empowered. And you won't know what's happening. How the books are going out. You won't know what you're saying. Just become an instrument. Krishna's spiritual energy flows through you. You don't know what's happening. The people don't know what's happening. They're taking the books. People are becoming devotees. And then we can gradually, Srila Prabhupada had so many ideas, having Vedic universities, and you can study. You could have one professor just studying the whole life, prayers of the personified lady. Have that. And then how it relates with this part of Shastra and this darshan and this word indicates this, and so many things. So many things. There's a whole foundation for re-spiritualizing the world is right here for Prabhupada. And of course there's so many other things to do also. Yesterday had another magnificent festival. Congratulations for that. This is the practical you can say the practical manifestation of what's in the books. And Srila Prabhupada is very, he very much wanted that these dramas, it's like the books in drama form, get the same message in the drama form. And that was one way in which people, when most people were illiterate, they would by hearing and then by dramas, they would get to know all these things and understand. That was good. That's a high point. People in the West couldn't imagine what kind of cities you have in India where there are no entertainment, there are no bars. There's probably something downtown in the hotel, right? But the local people don't go. It's outstation business people go. There's no culture of going to bars. There's no culture of going to the beach. Can you imagine that in Australia? No, you can't. Australia means beach, right? The whole purpose of life is to go on the beach. Young people. And the older people, the men are developing their beer belly, right? With fosters. And that's civilization. You didn't become civilized. There's nothing to do. Nothing to do. There's entertainments. There's no sports stadium. That's another huge thing in Australia. Sports. They're really into sports. Yeah, they're not religious. Not very religious people. Oh. Nice people, but not religious. Wait a minute. Let's ask Steve. So, in the Western country, they require so many distractions. But traditionally in India, there would be entertainment. That every night people would come together, do kirtan, and hear something about Krishna. Like this. This was their entertainment. Now that's not there. So the temple, and then people come to the temple and they get such a drama. There's no such thing. There's no such thing in the whole. Now I see in the villages they have, well, now is the season for the bull racing in Tamil Nadu. And then something they had all night recently in the village near Vellore, there's all night kabaddi contest. The mic is going on all night. What's that? All night kabaddi we're doing. So that's some entertainment. Kabaddi is an Indian sport. Some kind of sport. You have to touch someone, is it? Or something like that. So that's one thing. another thing, the even the biggest atheists, you don't find big atheists. Yeah. People are influenced by this Periyar rubbish idea still, but pardon. People will come to get nice prasadam, and they'll, even if they have no interest, they'll come and they'll come again, and they'll come again, and then they're finished. Someone will sell them a Bhagavatam set, and they'll have got enough piety to take it, and their whole life will change. So it's a great program. They got a great program here, changing people's lives. Prabhupada mercifully saved us, so we should go on doing that. Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Vancha kalpa tarupyascha kripasinti. Patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Dante nitaya chunakam padipanipat. Peace, sadhana sakha. Anga chan. Ruka. Vivaditu. Hare Krishna. Hare Rama.